and welcome to Infrastructure Matters, the podcast dedicated to exploring the dynamic world of infrastructure, asset management and public works. I'm your host, David Jenkins, CE of IPWEA. In today's episode, we're speaking with Megan Finnie, New South Wales Board Director and seasoned infrastructure practitioner. With a PhD in engineering and extensive local government experience, Megan offers an honest and passionate look at the challenges and opportunities facing public works today. We explore everything from workforce capacity and diversity to climate change, storytelling, and the future role of technology and asset management. Whether you're new to the profession or a long-time leader, there's something in this episode for everyone. So welcome to Infrastructure Matters podcast, and I'm delighted. We've got Megan Finnie with us today, and Megan is the IPWEA New South Wales Board Director, and she's also a contractor as well, but she's worked in local government for many years. So, but she also has a PhD in engineering.
Yes, I do.
And she's from New Zealand, where I lived for many years. Great country. Anyway, so Megan, I'm going to give you the first question for you. What are you seeing as the major challenges in public works at the moment?
Look, I think there's a lot of different smaller challenges that are facing depending on the timing. You know, we've got the climate crisis happening.
Yep.
We've got housing crises happening. We've got funding for infrastructure and the lack of thereof there. But one of the big things that I think that is coming through is a skill shortage, and the fact of recruiting into local government and public works can be really, really difficult. And it's different between regions and metro. Metro, you're up against the big contractors or the big private sector that can offer more in terms of, say, salary packages, but the work is different. And so depending on your stage in life or your priorities in life or proximity to home and all those sorts of things, that all comes into it. When you get out into the regions, you're then limited to the applicants that come. So I think across the board, it really comes down to getting people in, because if you don't have the people there, it doesn't matter how much money or you have or what the community wants, you're going to have no skill sets there to build and build that infrastructure.
So yes, capacity and capability. Well, that's, the IPWEA family talks a lot about that. Do you think the challenge is public works practitioners being better at telling the story of what they do? Because there's a whole social element, building and maintaining infrastructure for local communities. You can get involved in all sorts of different things. So is it more about being able to tell the story so young people can get interested and excited around public works? 100%.
As an engineering student going through university, we got, the most exciting things were these big bridges or these unique, novel, innovative designs that or the big, huge buildings. And, you looked at all the architecture and all the engineering feats that were made.
Yep.
And the reality is that you don't necessarily that's just not the only exciting thing in engineering. It's all about, there's not much focus around society and what you can give back to the community. And local government, so I worked in there for 6 years. It was great. Like, it was the amount of exposure you could get to different aspects of, say, project management was phenomenal compared to if you worked for a consulting company where you might be sort of more siloed or streamlined into a certain type of engineering or design facet. So I think the councils, they might not have the capacity to go to all the different universities and sort of pitch what they can and can't do or what projects they've got coming up. And that's where I think the peak bodies like IPWEA can work with the universities and be that transition for students who are interested in more, say, the community side or the social side. And it can be a very rewarding career in local government because you can make a difference in your own backyard. And particularly in the regions. Like, I think there's stats out there, and I can't recall exactly what they are, but the councils tend to be the biggest employer in those areas.
Okay, so I just want to stay on this train of capacity and capability, because I know that you're very passionate about diversity in the engineering workforce and a big proponent of getting females into engineering. What more do you think needs to be done?
That's a really, really hard and open question.
Well, we try and make it difficult for you, Megan. We don't want to make it too easy.
So I think there's lots of different avenues here, and something that I've been working on and even talking to my own company about it for the last sort of 12 to 18 months is I'm not here to talk about you need to hire more females. We're not here to talk about meeting this quota, getting this KPI, because that it's proven that it doesn't work.
Yep.
What I'm talking about now is changing that, and I guess this has sort of come through where I am at my phase of career and life as well, is making sure that the environment we're bringing young people into, whether they're male or female or any other gender, that they are safe and secure. Because all the stats out there show that there's still a problem with gender bias, there's still a problem with sexual harassment, and there's still a problem with gender discrimination. And for us to talk to university students, say, come and do engineering, it's a fantastic career, you're going to get worthwhile work, you're going to get great experience, and you're going to make a difference. But by the way, in the first 5 years, you're also going to get sexually harassed, and you're also going to be discriminated because you are a female. That is sending the wrong message, I believe. And I think we need to make sure that the environment that we're bringing them into, that the leaders of like now and in the future need to make sure that that environment is safe for young engineers to come into.
Okay. All right. And have you got a view on this in terms of engineers coming through into, do you think engineers make good, or are you seeing engineers going into management roles, CEO roles? Do you think that engineers have got, the right sort of people to go into, and are you seeing enough of that?
In terms of sort of that leadership career path, look, I think engineers have a really unique way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's the way we've been taught to sort of problem solve.
Yeah.
And that really sets you up to be successful in those leadership roles, whether it's CEO or lower down, some of those senior leadership positions. What I don't see enough of is mentoring. So a lot of the mentoring, there's different elements in your life that you would need it. When you're a graduate or you're coming out of university, not too sure where you're going, you've been taught all these different things, and you're like, now I have to sort of choose a certain avenue. That's one. If you're having like a change in career, like you don't want to be a stormwater engineer anymore, you want to sort of move into something else, that's another part. But what there isn't enough of, I believe, is that leadership mentoring and really helping people get the skill set that they need. And it's not necessarily the traditional engineering route, because it's all those other softer skills that you learn as you get experience. But it's also the stuff around procurement or financial. And, as engineers, we're not taught how to read P&Ls. But it's those business acumen skills and softer skills that we still need to know. And I think as well, like the talking around the softer skills, we need to be better at telling stories. Engineers really love facts. I love facts. We love an Excel spreadsheet. We love,
boxes.
Boxes, data, give us all of that.
Yes.
But we need to be able to tell the story that goes along with it, because that's where you can bring in emotions. Yeah. And that's where you can bring in and connect with the people that you're telling them to. And the great CEOs that I see can tell a story. And it could be, they could tell it in a couple of sentences, but they can also stretch it out to 10 minutes. And it's intriguing, and they've got the audience's attention, and it's those skills that I think. So I think the mentoring part really helps you with that.
Okay. So, and I'm glad you mentioned storytelling, because we say that a lot to our people who are doing the asset management courses, the importance of being able to communicate to your different stakeholders and tell the story, because you're always trying, if you've got a community, got a certain amount of money, there's only certain things you can do, there's certain trade-offs, you've got to be able to tell the story. So have you seen that in your sort of viewpoint as a contractor, have you seen that done really well within the sort of asset management community, or do you think there's more to be done? Where do you see that?
I think there's more to be done. I went to the Asset Management Congress last year in November.
Great.
And one of the speakers there was talking about storytelling. And actually, that was coming out, the main messages I got from that conference was around storytelling and language that we're using and how to change it so it's it means more to people. So yes, I think where there's much more to do, and it would be great to get some of these softer skills into professional development programs.
Yeah, great. Good plug for the conferences that we do. And obviously IPWEA New South Wales. Now, let's go on to the other thing you brought on was mentoring, because we've got, and we know this, we've got a demographic of our younger fraternity, younger membership that are listening to the podcasts, right? And you talked about mentors and the benefit and the value of mentors. What advice would you give if someone is listening to this podcast now, they've just started their journey in public works, asset management, local government, maybe they're a young feet, maybe they're not, doesn't matter. They just started. What practical advice would you give them now, looking back, to help them with their careers moving forward?
The one piece of advice there's two pieces of advice. Firstly, try everything and take every opportunity that comes to you, because that is where you're going to get the most technical experience from, is getting involved in lots of different things. My second piece of advice goes back to the mentoring piece. Get two mentors. Get one within your organisation, because they can help you navigate the political environment of the internal stakeholders, and get one outside, someone that when things don't go so well or things aren't feeling the best, you can rely on someone like that. And you can have a conversation, a confidential conversation with someone who's outside of your organisation, to be able to go, look, this doesn't really sit right with me. Am I overreacting? Is this normal? Where can I go from here?
Great advice. That's good. Now, I want to pick up on something you said earlier, and we talked about climate change. And we do quite a bit in this space, as you know, around asset management, climate change. How do you see all this playing out? Because we have decaying infrastructure, a lot of money still being poured into infrastructure. Are we maintaining it the way we should be? Some cases, yes. Some cases, no. And then we've got overlaying climate change and some of the impacts that that's having. How, in your role, how are you seeing that all play? How are you seeing that all playing out?
Look, I think it's obvious to everyone that these events are getting bigger and more frequent. So we're coming to the climate change is no longer something that's going to happen. It's happening to us now. You talked about aging infrastructure. We've got lots of concrete structures out there that are coming to the end of life. The lens that gets put on top of that with the climate risk or the climate change piece is that what are we doing as a asset management practitioner community, looking at useful lives, looking at how much of the design life left is, because although, we might have, for argument's sake, we might have a bridge that has another 25 years left. As practitioners, are we looking that far forward? But then when you bring the climate change piece into it, is it actually going to be there in 25 years? Or should we be doing something about it in 10 years? Or should we be looking at where in our networks we have that vulnerability or the risk around our networks, to then say, okay, this is where we need to invest some money in, or this is where our network is going to fail if we get another storm like we've just had in the last couple of months in New South Wales.
So do you think there's not enough long-term thinking?
We've got, I think most of the industry, or most of the local government industry, is looking at that 10 years or trying to extend to that 10 years. Beyond that, no, I don't see that much around.
And look, typically, I'm generalising here, but the engineering fraternities with concrete and steel, right?
And a bit of asphalt.
That's right. Now, and we've been talking a lot about green infrastructure, right? And sort of looking at that as an alternative to hard, grey, traditional infrastructure. Are you seeing some of that coming in? Is there some changes of thinking there? That's my first question. And then secondly, I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but looking at things in isolation, if we're trying to get to a more sustainable world, it's not just about grey and green infrastructure. It's not just about climate resilience. It's a whole systems approach, right? So would you agree with that and some of your thoughts? Yeah,
on your second question, yes, I think it is more of a systems approach. There's been some research and some, I think I saw a paper a couple of years ago around bringing that system together and how the greener infrastructure can actually help the traditional grey infrastructure. On your first question was about grey and green infrastructure, because we're talking a lot about grey and green infrastructure. And I guess it's a change in the way of thinking, because the traditional thinking has been, okay, it's a concrete solution, steel solution, right?
but is there an opportunity to integrate more green infrastructure into what we do?
Yeah, look, I think there is an opportunity. The community is calling out for more of the greener infrastructure. Yeah. And it's a matter of balancing the levels of service. So people still are going to need the roads, the bridges, the tunnels, the train networks to be able to commute, to be able to access, be able to transport goods. We'd still as an economy need to be able to have them. But it's that other side of the equation, which is more, I guess, your personal life and how that impacts. And, people, like I have young children, we love a park. Yeah. And we want parks and we want playgrounds. We don't want all the hard infrastructure there, but we still want the connectivity. Yeah. So it's about, and I think that's with the hybrid working and with the next generation coming through, I think the priorities are going to be a little bit different in terms of what is wanted or expected out of, say, local government and your community facilities. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes in that space.
I'm glad you said that about parks and kids, because until you've had kids, you don't even realise the benefit of them. And
you don't even know where they are.
And then the greatest thing.
And then you go, how far do I need to walk in a pram? And will my child be asleep by the time we get to the playground?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, now we're changing subject a little bit here, but I want to turn it around to technology, right? So we've talked a bit about technology changing, moving forward, etc. Most professions are. That's not new. But where can technology be used in the whole asset management cycle? Where are the benefits? What should local government be looking out for? What shouldn't it be looking out for? Because you've got the benefit of both sides, right? You've been a local government and now a contractor. Just some of your views on the changing technology space and where you see it going.
Yeah, look, I'm no technology expert, but I think it's a really exciting time for asset management practitioners to see how technology is going to influence and change how we manage assets going forward. We're going to be able to predict much better their performance over time. We're going to be able to get real-time, we're already getting real-time data on the performance of our assets. Yeah. And that's just going to increase even more. And I think that's a really exciting time because it's going to change how we've done things, which have been more traditionally looking backwards as opposed to looking forwards. Yeah. So I think that's a really exciting thing coming out of it. What's the second part?
Well, just in terms of what should local government be looking out for? Because you can invest a whole lot of money in technology. What should you be looking out for? Obviously trying to drive efficiencies in the system, but just some of your views on that.
Look, my personal opinion is that local governments should probably leave the technology developments and up to, say, the private sector. They're the ones with the funding. You don't want to be spending ratepayers' money on something that they, might not come to fruition. Leave all the R&D up to the research and development up to the private sector. Where local government can use it is to be able to pick it up and really give it, is to pick it up and get some real value for it in making decisions, but also to be able to give back to the community. So having this value add to the community on how they are managing and performing, how the assets are performing and how they're managing them.
And I know that IPWEA New South Wales are doing some great stuff in the whole technology space, looking at AI and using that to do road assessments, and there's some really good stuff going on there. So if people are interested, they can certainly go to the New South Wales website and have a look. Yeah.
So it's a project under our Roads and Transport Directorate.
That's right. Yep.
Called Asset AI, and we've partnered with Transport for New South Wales. So it's a great initiative. I think there's a few councils on board in the pilots and in the trials, and hopefully it just keeps growing. Yeah,
no, that's good. Okay, how do you? And this is a bit of a esoterical question here, but I'm interested in your views. If we were to sit down here in 10, 15 years' time, you and me, kids are older, park's not as interesting anymore, moved on to other problems. But where do you think the future of public works is going? Where do you think? Where do you see that future landscape of public works?
Look, I think in public works, it's going to be around. We're going to need the infrastructure there for the public use. So public works is still going to be around there in the future. How it looks is going to be different. we already know that there's going to be a lot more data available.
Yeah.
We're going to have a plethora of data almost. Yeah. And it's just about making sure that we firstly have the system set up that it can be managed in the future, and that the systems that we have now can steer us into the future and also support us. But we also want to make sure that the investment we're putting into that is actually going to give us some value add. Yeah. So we can have all this data, but is it really necessary? Or what data are you using to make decisions? So I think public works is still going to be around. The technology space, I think, is going to look very, very different. Yeah. I think our ways of working are going to look very, very different. Yep. It will be really interesting to see how the skills shortage impacts onto the local government, because if you can't get, I talk about engineers because I am one, but if you talk about a profession and they can't get that skilled workforce, what do you do? Yeah. So do you outsource? Yep. Do you end up going into design consultancies and they do it? Yep. Do you outsource your asset management? Do you outsource your levels of service to you outsource to service providers to provide the level of service to your community? I think it's all going to look very different, and it will depend a lot on how the next generation, who will be the future leaders, come in with their own ideas, because they're going to have a certain way of working. Yeah. They're going to have a certain way of priorities. And we're already seeing some of that come through. And, we have to, as asset management or as practitioners, we need to make sure that we are embracing the younger people coming through, because they are going to be the leaders. Yeah. We have to, I'm sort of in the mid-range of my career, so it's sort of I feel like I have to have both sides of the equation. Have to have the leaders I'm trying to aspire to and strive to, but also be conscious of that's going to be very different when the next generation come through. Yeah, good. Because they just have different priorities. They
do. Great points. You've been brilliant, Megan. I'm going to now finish on a question that I'll ask. Actually, you're the second person I've asked. This is a new thing going forward, right? So just so the listeners can get a little bit of insight into Megan Finnie. What is your favourite food to cook and why? It's not a trick question.
It's not a trick. Okay, can I have two?
Okay, Megan, yes, you have two.
So I really enjoy making my children's birthday cakes.
Yeah, right.
So that's one thing that I do.
Yeah, right.
A lot of
chocolate?
Well, some can be chocolate. Some can be, I think I've done a white chocolate and lemon cake before. Oh, wow. But it's not necessarily the flavour of the cake, because, you've probably been to many kids' birthday parties. They just eat the icing anyway.
Yes.
But it's more the decorations that I do.
Yeah, right.
And on the other hand, something that I do regularly is make sourdough.
Oh, from scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. Excellent.
Okay. So there's sweet and savoury, right? Because I have a huge sweet tooth.
Yeah, right. That's impressive.
I have to balance it out with some good old sourdough.
Perfect. It's been an absolute pleasure, Megan. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. And thanks again.
Thanks.
And that wraps up another episode of Infrastructure Matters. A huge thank you to our guest, Megan Finnie, for her insights on workforce development, engineering leadership, and preparing for the future of public works. To our listeners, as always, thank you for tuning in. We hope this conversation has given you fresh ideas and renewed purpose in your work. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review Infrastructure Matters on your favourite platform. Follow us on LinkedIn for updates and bonus content. I'm David Jenkins signing off, reminding you that in the world of infrastructure, every detail matters.